I said last time that we had this year, so all the guys were standing in the back making l'chaim to Shalom Bayis. I see you guys gave up already. But I want to start off with two stories, and then we'll see something on Tu B'Av, which is just, we're still with the sparks of this holy day, and we'll try to take a message home with us before we get to the questions. One of the most famous Gedolei Ador leaders of Klal Yisrael in the 1960s, 70s, 80s, 50s was Rav Moshe Feinstein Zatzal. He and his wife probably must have been married at least 65 years. He was 90 when he passed away. Probably about 60, 65 years they were married. When Rav Moshe passed away, they came to ask his wife, what was it like to be married to Rav Moshe Feinstein for all of these years? And without skipping a beat, she answered very simply. It was like being married to a Malach Hashem, to an angel of God. Now we have to ask ourselves, if somebody would come and ask our wives, what is it like being married to this guy? She might say Malach, but maybe not Malach Hashem. It might be Malach HaMavet. It might be the angel of death. It's always good to think, what would your wife answer if somebody would ask her, how is your husband? How's your Shalom Bayis? How's he taking care of you? The other story is that one of the other great leaders of that generation, he passed away already, I believe, in the 1990s, was a Shlomo Zalman Auerbach. He was a man who lived his whole life in Yerushalayim. He lived an illustrious career of being one of the premier poskim of Klal Yisrael. I was at his levaya, at his funeral. There were over 300,000 people in the streets of Yerushalayim. In those days, it was the biggest funeral that had been for generations. When Rav Shlomo Zalman's wife passed away, he was standing over her grave. And he said, it's customary by the grave of a spouse to ask mechila, to ask forgiveness for anything that I might have done all of these years that we were married together. But my dear wife, you are my witness. In all of the years of our marriage, I have nothing to ask you mechila for. He wasn't a haughty man. He wasn't an arrogant person. He wasn't trying to show off by the levaya of his wife. Look what a great, amazing husband I am, and I was. He was teaching Klal Yisrael a lesson. You could be married for 70 years. You could go through a lot of difficulties, and certainly they did. And he was a man who had the pressures of all of Klal Yisrael on his shoulders. Busy day and night, people coming with all of their problems, all of their issues. They were badgering him all of the time. He had a yeshiva that he was responsible for, thousands of students. Some of the biggest halachic shailas, questions in all of Klal Yisrael were coming to his door on a regular basis. They didn't have a lot of money, they had a lot of children, they didn't have a lot of means. And there was sickness, and there were tragedies, and there were difficulties. And in 70 years, he was able to exclaim at the funeral of his wife, I have nothing to ask you mechila for. Means he never yelled at her. He never made a face at her. He never disappointed her. He never let her down. He never got aggravated by her. He never wasn't there when she needed him to be there for her. He never misjudged her unfavorably. He never made fun of her. He was never sarcastic with her. He never put her down. In 70 years, he made no mistakes. How is it possible for a human being in this world, flesh and blood? We know what it's like. You come home from a long, tiring day, and all you want is a little bit of food to eat, and your wife is too busy on Facebook to even notice that you walked through the door. How is it possible that a man is married to a woman for 70 years and he never made a mistake? he never made her cry. The Gemara says that a man has to be very careful because tears come very easily to a woman. You say the wrong thing, you look the wrong way, you don't do the right thing, you forget about the birthday, you don't honor the anniversary in the proper way. And the tears start coming, you're going to be judged and held accountable for every tear that streamed down your wife's cheeks. And all the tissues that went along with it. Hashem will wring them out with all the tears and all the mucus and everything that is there. He testified on himself, not once in 70 years did I make my wife cry. Not once did I make her feel bad about herself and look down on her because of something she didn't do. Not once. How does a person create a world of Shalom Bayis, of Shalom Bayit like that between them and their wives? So, perhaps many of you know the very famous words of Chazal. It's the last Mishnah in Masechta Tainis says over the following. It says, "Shalahayu yomim toivim liyisrael k'yom ha'kippurim v'tu ba'av." There are no more yomim toivim, good days for Klal Yisrael, better than Yom Kippur and Tu B'Av, which is, we're just on the tail end of the 15th day in the month of Av. So the Gemara says over there, I understand you can't find a better day than Yom Kippur because that's the day that you show up in shul, you clap al chait 1,000 times on your chest, you say you're sorry, maybe you'll be zoich to shed one little tear, and Hashem says, I forgive you for everything. You spoke Lashon Hara, you cheated on this, you did that, you were Mechal Shabbos, you didn't eat kosher, you didn't say a bracha, you were nasty to this person, forget it. You're forgiven for everything. You didn't have a munah, you didn't put on tefillah, I'll forgive you. You came to me on Yom Kippur, you said you're sorry, slicha, mechila, the kapara. Understood? So that's, what greater day could there be in the entire history of the world? And we know it's also the day that Moshe Rabbeinu came down from Mount Sinai, and he had the second set of luchos of the tablets in his hand. Hashem gave us back the Torah. What could be better than that? These two, just those two things alone is enough for a person to be alive. You can mess up the whole year and Hashem forgives you, and you can destroy the Torah and Hashem says, you want it, I'll give it back to you. So Yom Kippur, we all understand. Ela Tu B'Av, but on the 15th day in the month of Av, Mahi. What is so great about this day? We didn't say Tachanun today, that's pretty good. But it doesn't make it Yomim Tovim that there's no better day than that. Amar of Yehuda Amar Shmuel, the Gemara says, Yoim Shehutru Shvatim Lavai Zeh Bazeh. It was the day on the calendar that once a year, the Shvatim, the great tribes of Klal Yisrael, the 12 tribes, normally when they would marry, it was very tribal. They only married within their tribe, Dan with Dan, Asher with Asher, Yehuda with Yehuda. On Tu B'Av, says the Gemara, they were allowed to intermarry. It's like an Esfahan and a Shirazi. Probably the biggest crime in the Persian world. And encouraged to do such a thing. Encouraged. Shkayach. So that's why this is such a wonderful day. What is so amazing that 11 months and 29 days out of the year, you have to marry someone within your tribe, your neighborhood, your family, people that you're familiar with. There's a big minor, there's a big advantage. You marry a girl from a different planet, you don't know what you're getting. You marry a girl from your neighborhood. You marry a girl whose family background aligns with yours. You marry a girl that maybe even your families are very close to each other and good friends. So there's so much overlap, there's so much in common. There's an understanding even before you go into the house for the first time. So that's a big minus, a big advantage. Says the Gemara, but you know what was even greater than that? One day a year, they allowed for the tribes to overlap and intermarry with each other. What is the great simcha the great Yomim Tovim, the great day that Hashem has made because of Tu B'Av. So this is Rashagi Neuberger's Sefer on Shalom Bayis, Yatzei Shalom, which is the advisors of peace. And he brings over here from Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky, who was him and Rav Moshe Feinstein. They were the two Gedolei Ador, the two leaders of that generation. And Rabbi Yaakov says over here, he asked this question, Maya Simcha Gedola, what was the great joy? Shohucha Shvatim Lava Izeh Bezeh, because now the tribes can intermarry with each other. V'yesh kol echad yoyser shidduchim, what now? There's more shidduchim. I was limited to only my tribe. Now with the J-swipe, whatever it is, the whole world is an oyster over here. What that was the simcha that Klal Yisrael had, there's more shidduchim that could be made. So he asked, what is the kavanah? What were Chazal? What did they have in mind when they made such a day? And they said such a thing. And he explains over the following idea. Every single shevet, every single tribe had characteristics, had midot, had a whole outlook and a whole approach to life which was very unique to that particular tribe. And that was their strengths. That was their milas, their great advantages. Those were the powerful things that they had that defined them and made the tribe who they were. And normally it was all kept within the tribe. So we know what we're all about. We know what our identity is. We know what our strengths are. And therefore you take a husband and a wife from such a tribe, you put them together. They're going to grow, they're going to prosper, they're going to become a powerhouse couple, dynamic couple. But then he says over here, if every tribe has strengths, and every tribe has unique qualities about it, and every tribe has something that is so special that makes them the powerful tribe that they are, wouldn't it be amazing if you take two tribes then and you put them together as one? And you take a man that's got all of these strengths, and you take a woman with all of these strengths, and you allow them to unite in a union of marriage, and they bring in both of them all that they learned from their houses, from their parents, in their lifetime, in their experience, and they bring it together, they create a super nova type of a marriage over here that is more powerful and stronger than what you could imagine. And he says over here something that's so important to understand, and that is the differences that a husband and a wife bring to the table. The differences that a husband and a wife bring from their backgrounds, from their experience, from who they are as people. It's not something that should create the Ezer connect or the fighting back and forth between each other. It's supposed to be the attributes that complement one another, bring out the best in the other person, and create a house that is a bastion of Shalom Bayit, of peace and harmony and understanding and patience and respect and acceptance. And when two people that are different come together as one, and they make it work in a way that is above and beyond what anybody would ever dream of, there is no greater simcha, there is no greater joy in Klal Yisrael than such a day like a Tu B'Av that not only allowed but encouraged, at least on that day, go into a marriage where there are going to be differences, but those differences are strengths, not weaknesses. And as a result of that, your marriage is going to be elevated to a much higher level than just in the tribal form that it usually is. Says Rashagi Neuberger that a husband has to understand your wife is different than you. She doesn't think like you. She doesn't talk like you. She doesn't act like you. She doesn't look at the world the same way that you look at the world. She doesn't think about the meaning of life and the purpose of being here the way that you do. She doesn't think about marriage the same way that you think about marriage. It's all different. physiologically, emotionally, physically, spiritually, psychologically, totally different person. But there's nothing wrong with the things that she has that are different than you. It's what makes her who she is. And if you can't learn how to accept the differences that there are in your wife, if you can't learn how to appreciate the differences that she has, even when sometimes it might be so aggravating to see how she deals with a situation, but you can accept it, and you can embrace her, and you can respect her, and you can love her as a result of that, so then you are living a Tu B'Av 365 days of the year. And Ein Yomim Tovim. There are no better days than that. But if you do the opposite, which many of us do, we don't understand, why is our wife not like us? Why doesn't she understand things the way that we understand? How come she cannot understand that there is a budget that must be balanced, and if she's running out every week for the mani-pedi, on top of the latte every single day for breakfast, on top of Lenny's Casitas for lunch 3 days a week, on top of going shopping on the shopping spree that she continually does, even though that I told her we're way over the budget right now, why doesn't she understand? And the answer is because she is a woman, and she needs things, and she wants things, and she only feels good about herself when her nails and her toenails are matching every single month. Because they told her at the mikveh that if you don't clean it off good enough, you can't even go to the mikveh this month. So what can she do? She has to go every single month. It costs these days an arm and a leg. That's what it costs, my friends. You'll stop smoking the vape, and you'll stop your cigars, and you'll stop the nights in the bar once in a while with your drinks, and you'll save the money so your wife can feel good about herself. Says Shagi Neuberger, the yesod, the foundation of a happy marriage, the foundation of a successful marriage, the foundation of a marriage that is going to be filled with simcha and joy, and a wife that is so happy because she knows that she is loved and respected, comes from you. If you show her that you love her for the differences that she has. You love her for her strengths. You don't focus on the weaknesses. We focus in on the strengths. And even though she might not always be able to do the things that you would like her to do, it doesn't make her any less of a person. One of the great Rosh Yeshivas of America in the probably, must have been the 60s, was Shlomo Hyman. And Shlomo Hyman was also from the great leaders of Jewry here in America. And unfortunately, he and his wife were only married for 24 years. He got very sick, and he passed away at a relatively young age, late 40s, early 50s. And his wife ended up being a widow at the age of about 46 years old, I believe. In their 24 years of marriage, they were never zeicher to have children. He's a Rosh Yeshiva. He's running a wonderful yeshiva. He has hundreds, if not thousands, of talmidim, of students. He and his wife got married. They certainly were dreaming of having a beautiful family themselves. They never merited to have a single child. When he passed away after his sickness, so they didn't have any children to say Kaddish. There was no one to lead the services. Nevertheless, they made all the minyanim in the Shiva house, and it was just his wife that was there. Maybe there was a brother or something, but it was basically his wife in their apartment that was an empty apartment without any children for all those years. On the last day of Shiva, the halach is you get up from Shiva in the morning after Shacharit. So it was the final Shachris and it was the final Kaddish that was said. And all the boys were beginning to pack out and go back to the yeshiva. And the Rebbitzin appeared and she said, Bachrim, my son's special students, I want to tell you about a shir that my husband gave constantly that none of you ever saw before. And if you'll ask me, it was the best shiur that he ever gave. And she said, you know that my husband and I were never zocher, we were never privileged to bring children into this world. It was not an easy thing for me to go through. It was very hard emotionally. It took a lot of energy out of me. We didn't have a family. I didn't have a lot of shopping to do. I didn't have a lot of clothes to clean. The house was never dirty. There wasn't a house that I had to be cleaning constantly after the kids, diapers and everything. So my duties were very limited. I should have made sure that there was breakfast, lunch, and dinner for the Rosh Hashiva, my husband. That was it. Make sure the house is tidy. Make sure it's spick and span so that when he comes home, he'll come home to a clean house and dinner will be waiting on the table. It's not so much to ask from a woman like me. She said, but there were many days over those 24 years where I was so emotionally distraught and drained from the situation. I couldn't pull myself together to make lunch. I couldn't get myself together to make a decent dinner. I couldn't pull myself off the couch to tidy up and clean everything so that it would be nice and neat when the Rosh Hashiva would come home. She said, but I want you to know something. In 24 years of marriage, your great Rosh Hashiva, my tzaddik husband, never once, not once, said a word to me when he came home and he saw that breakfast, lunch, or dinner was not waiting. He never said a word to me once when he saw that the house was a mess because I did not take care of it. He never once said a word when there was a chasana that we were supposed to go to. And I said at the last minute, I'm not in the mood tonight, you have to go by yourself. He never once criticized, never once said a word, never once tried to fix everything up. You know what he used to do? When he would come home and see there was no dinner, he would go into the kitchen, he would cut 2 pieces of cake, he would put one on one plate and one on the other, and make 2 cups of tea. And then he would come to the table and he would invite me for dinner. And then we would sit and we would talk about everything and anything except the situation that we were in and that I was in and why I was incapable of taking care of him in the right way. And she said to the boys, you saw your Rosh Hashiva, the great Lamdan, the great Talmid Chacham in Yeshiva. But I saw the Rosh Hashiva, the tzaddik, who gave a shir every single day like that. And that was the greatest shir that he ever gave. When you learn how to appreciate, and you learn how to be sensitive, and you learn how to understand where your wife is coming from, what she is going through, what she has gone through, what her childhood was like, what her life has been like, what her friends have been like, bullied and this and all the different things that have gone on in her life. The pressure from her parents, the pressure from her grandparents, the pressure from the boss, all the different things. When you can compute and calculate all of that in your mind and in your heart before you open up your big mouth, which might bring the tears falling out of her eyes, or give her one of those looks. There was a guy in Baltimore, he said his favorite time in his marriage was when he and his wife would have children. Why was it his highlights? He said because the whole community would come together and they would make meals, they would make dinner for them. He said, When my wife's in charge of dinner, I don't eat. He said, when everybody else, this one makes chicken, and this one makes meat, and this one makes fish. He said, I eat like a king for a few months after the baby is born. If your wife didn't make dinner, there's probably a reason why she didn't make dinner. If the house is a wreck, there's probably a reason why the house is a wreck. If all of your friends are going into the early morning learning and you want to be there and your wife says, no, you need to be here. I need your help in the morning. Get the kids ready, change the diapers, put them in their clothes, take them to school. And you start saying, don't say anything. She has a reason why she's falling apart in the morning without you, and she needs you to be there for this tekufa, for this period, to take care of the kids and get them out of her hair and take them to school. You have to be patient and understanding and sensitive to your wife. Because if you are, then after 70 years of marriage, you will be able to stand at that time and say, I have no mechila to ask for. You know that it's the altar of Kelm. Every year before Yom Kippur, the last thing that he would do before he came to the Beit Midrash for Ne'ilah is that he would ask his wife profusely for anything that he did that wronged her in the previous year. Any pain that he might have caused her, anything that he might have done to slight her honor, anything that he would have done. And every year, the altar of Kelm, just so you should know, he was a man, he was in total control of all of his midot, of all of his emotions, complete control. Believe me, he did nothing wrong to his wife. One year, he's on his way to leave to go to the Beit Midrash for Ne'ilah. And he comes to his wife like he does every year. And he says, my dear wife, and he says with such sincerity, probably with tears in his eyes, please be mochel me, forgive me for anything I might have done to you that offended you, that upset you, that hurt you. Please forgive me. Now, usually his wife right away would say, no, you have nothing, don't worry. But this year she paused for a second. She paused 1 second before she said, no, you have nothing to worry about. That 1 second to the altar of Kelm was a sign to him that there must have been something that he did this year that she was harboring and holding on to, that she actually was a little bit upset with him. And he refused to go to Ne'ilah until he groveled and he cried and he begged her, please tell me that you're moichel me with all of your heart. And until she convinced him that she forgave him completely, nothing to worry about, only then did the altar of Kelm go to the yeshiva to be there for Ne'ilah. If we'll come to our wives before Ne'ilah and ask her to be mochel us for everything that we've done this past year, you might not even make it to shul by the time of, I'm sorry, not of Kol Nidre, of Ne'ilah at the end. I'm sorry, the Bayis is not Ne'ilah, the beginning of Yom Kippur, Kol Nidre. Okay, Kol Nidre. He wouldn't go to Kol Nidre until she was willing to forgive him. So I'm just saying that if we would have to ask forgiveness, you're not even going to make it to Ne'ilah at the end of the day. Don't get stuck on Erev Yom Kippur wondering if your wife has what it takes to forgive you for everything that you did to her this past year. We have a concept in Shalom Bayit, and that is that a husband and wife should never go to bed angry with each other. That means that if there is tension that arose during the day and you got in an argument or a fight, or the silent, what is the silent treatment? This is like it's the most childish behavior that two grown adults who are supposed to be semi-sophisticated in their understanding of humanity. They are people that are striving to have peace and harmony in the home and have a beautiful marriage. And what do? They give each other the silent treatment. I haven't talked to my wife for 4 days, but she didn't speak to me already for 6 days. What are you talking about? You're a husband and a wife. You're living under the same roof. Some of you have children that are around and they're watching a husband, a father, and a mother who are not talking to each other. There's no place for this behavior in our marriages. No place. It's for children on the playground in kindergarten. It's for girls that get in a cat fight and they don't want to talk with each other anymore. For a husband and a wife, chas v'shalom, that you would ever give your wife the cold shoulder and the silent treatment. And if she does it to you, so she has to understand that's not the way that we behave. On the other hand, if we got in an argument and we got in a fight, before you go to bed at night, whether you understand fully what you did wrong or not, and whether she understands, you say, you know what, we're not going to bed angry with each other. I'm sorry for anything that I did. Please forgive me. And she's supposed to say, I forgive you. If there's anything that I did to you today that upset you, please forgive me. And you say, I forgive you.
Cool
So
down for the next day.
okay, look, you have to know, if you keep messing up and making the same big mistakes, so then she's losing faith and trust in you. You can't make a big mistake once or twice a week and expect that you're just going to apologize and, everything is going to be, it's... Men and women are very different in this area. You could have done the biggest avera in the world to your wife, and you wake up in the morning and you're fine. Everything is great. You're ready to go on. Marriage is great. You love your kids. You love your wife. You're going on vacation to Hawaii next week. You're right. And she's already calling the travel and canceling the plans. And she's calling you the worst names in the world. And she's already sent you about 1,000 or 2,000 words of text messages that you must read and go through. And if you don't answer them with right now to explain yourself, you're going to be even in bigger trouble. So you end up losing faith in your wife's eyes. So the goal is, don't make the big mistakes. Little mistakes, it's all par for the course. And you slip up here, you slip up there, but you got to catch yourself immediately, and you have to be humble enough to say, I'm sorry. But if you're doing big mistakes, then your wife says, this guy doesn't care about me. He doesn't understand. He did it last week, and he told me he'll never do it again, and he did it again this week. And he knows how it makes me feel. And then he does it the next week. Or in 2 months down the road, you do it, you behave yourself for 2 months, and then you do it again. How much can she trust you? So you have to really be on guard for yourself, and you have to know what is the boundaries that your wife does not like, meaning when you're overstepping the line, and the things that you do that again, there are certain things that you hear your friends talk about that they do, their wives could care less. Why they care less? Who knows? Because they're probably doing their own things and they don't want the husband to find out, so therefore they don't care. And your wife, she does care about it. So you can't compare to your friend whose wife lets him get away with bloody murder, and you cannot get away with bloody murder. And if you keep doing it again and again and again, you're losing all respect in your wife's eyes. And she doesn't trust you. So if you want her to trust you, you have to give a reason to trust you. You have to show her. And that's what they say. Shana Rishayna, the first year of marriage, according to the Torah, is 1 year. But this I heard from Rav Shagi himself. And he said, Shana Rishayna, Bizman is in our generation, our day and age, is as long as it takes for a husband to prove to his wife that he loves her beyond the shadow of a doubt, no matter what, and he will always be there for her when she needs him. For some people it will take 1 year. Some people might take 2 years. Some it might take 5, and some will never ever get out of Shana Rishona. They will be trying to prove to their wives until they're standing by the graveside that they actually loved their wife and they cared about her and they were there to support her. So it's all up to you. It's really all the mistakes that you make in marriage, it's up to you. You just have to learn how to be sensitive to your wife and not so judgmental and not so quick to fly off the handle and respond to her. She's different. HaKadosh Baruch Hu made her differently. She is, by physiological nature, she is obviously different. And she is emotionally different and spiritually different, all very different. And you have to appreciate that and not judge her for it. And then you're not going to get so upset. You're not going to get so frustrated. I can't believe. What can't you believe? Is she you? She's not you. She can't believe the things that you do because you're not her. So when we show our wives that we are makabel, we accept 100% who you are, and I'm not judging you, I'm not looking down on you, I'm not putting you down for anything, they begin to understand, and they begin to respect, and they begin to elevate you on the pedestal that you would like to be on. One of the biggest complaints, I think we mentioned this last time, is husbands always complain, my wife doesn't respect me. She doesn't give me respect. She does it in front of our kids, she does it over here, she doesn't respect me. And the answer is because she knows you don't respect her. If you would respect your wife the way that you're supposed to, and you would give and give and give and love and love and love, so then your wife would know how you feel about her, she would reciprocate in the same way. But she's feeling judged and under pressure and unloved. She doesn't get the compliment she needs. She doesn't get the boost of self-confidence that she needs. She doesn't get those loving looks and those loving messages and the feelings, the warm, fuzzy feelings that once upon a time maybe you had for her. She doesn't get that anymore. So she says, this guy doesn't care about me. So why should I go out of my way to make him feel like he's so great? If he was so great, he would take much better care of me. You control that part of the marriage. You want your wife to respect you? Shower her with respect and with love and with derech eretz. Don't be judgmental. You take care of the situation before it even arises. You know that she needs something. Why does she always have to ask you? Why does she always have to ask you? You know that she can't handle when the kids are all over. You know that. Bedtime, morning time, breakfast time, Shabbos morning, she's going out of her mind. She's locked in the house for 3 hours with these kids while you're at shul. So maybe you have to go daven someplace early, come back a little bit earlier to your wife and be there to help out, maybe. Or maybe you have to convince your wife. You know, there's a lot of wives that are coming to shul with the kids. Maybe it'll be a good thing for you. Meet some people and this, and you might have to convince her over the next 4, 5, 6 weeks before she has the courage to, for whatever reason it is, leave the house and go and meet other women that are in shul. But you encourage, you're not judging her. You're encouraging her, showing her. Maybe you tell one of your friends, maybe your wife can call my wife, invite her to come to shul, the kiddush and this and that. She needs friends. So all of the respect is coming from you. But if you're always looking at the differences as being a chesar and as being something that is lacking in her, you're going to have a very hard time respecting her because you're going to be upset with her. But if you see the differences as what makes her her and what complements the marriage and what's going to allow it to make you you, because you're going to have to work on yourself and you're going to have to learn to accept. So then it's amazing. The more differences she has, the better it is. The better you're going to work on yourself, the better you're going to make this marriage. The harder you have to work, lafum tzara agra, the harder you have to work on something, the greater the reward is going to be in this world and the world to come. So the more that you have to flex your Shalom Bayis muscles in this world, so the bigger they're going to become and the greater your marriage is going to be. And the question basically is that how can a husband influence his wife to elevate her standards of religiosity? If he sees that she's not holding in the same place that he's holding in his practice of Yiddishkeit of Judaism. Example being, for example, that they go to eat and they're going to eat bread and he goes to wash and to make hamotzi and she doesn't make hamotzi. Or she makes hamotzi but she doesn't say Birkat HaMazon afterwards and he does, of course. So what can a husband do to encourage his wife to grow in her mitzvot as well? It's a very good question, and it's a very delicate question, because if someone's wife is not doing those things, that's because that's where they're holding in their life, which means that they're not holding, so to speak, by expressing their religion in the same practice and the same form that you are. So you can never, just like with anybody in religion, you can never tell a person, be more religious. You can never tell a person, well, you should really be washing and you should be davening and you should be putting on tefillin and you should make sure that you keep kosher. Nobody likes to be told what to do. We can only teach by example, and we can only influence by how we learn with them and we teach them, and we leave it up to them whether or not they would like to make that decision for themselves to do such a thing. You can be very encouraging. I know a woman it's the opposite story. She's very, very frum, and her husband, he has his spiritual challenges in life. And when he does the right thing, for example, he drags himself out of bed and he goes to the minyan to pray, or whatever his vices are and he conquers his vices, she makes such a big deal. She'll cook the guy a steak and she'll sing his praises and she'll say, wow, you're like the biggest tzaddik of the generation. She makes him feel good. She pumps up his ego because that's what he needs to be able to succeed. So similarly over here with a woman, when she does something positive in her performance of mitzvot, so you got to just praise her to no end. And you can even say things, wow, you're amazing, and wow, when you do that, you're so beautiful, the way that you say Birkat HaMazon, wow, and all the different things that you can say to make her feel so good about herself. She'll see how meaningful it is to you, and it actually enhances your marriage because it gives you more respect for your wife, and it makes you feel much more comfortable with the situation. And she begins to feel that. Look, I don't know what to tell you in those areas, but the reality is, if she's not holding, you can't make her be holding.
Turn them down. Yeah.
If she's not holding by a certain level of kashrut, she's not there. You know, she asks, you know that there's a restaurant she goes to that you yourself would never eat at, and you told her before, listen, we don't eat at that restaurant, and she said, okay, I do. So she does. So just make sure she doesn't feed it to you. But she herself is going to go there. She's going to go there. She's going to go there. And no matter how many times you're going to tell her not to go there, you just make it worse. Then it's lahachish. She's going to do it just to get back at you. Well, you're so frum. You're so super Jew over here. She should just be happy with her where she is.
I think it's
Yeah, and the same question is, why is it that we have no patience for our children, but we can have patience for everybody else's children also?
Yeah.
The answer is because the people that are closest to us, the people that we are closest to, we have the greatest amount of expectations from them. And therefore, when they let us down in the expectations that we have, so the natural response is you're going to get upset because you don't understand, why is she not doing what she's supposed to do? Why is she talking like that? Why is she not just this perfect wife that I thought that she was when we were standing in the chuppah? I didn't expect attitude. I didn't expect her to talk back to me. I didn't expect her to fall apart and be a wreck every time during that special time of the month. She never told me it's going to be that bad. So how was I supposed to know that? So I had all these great expectations that you're gonna, it's gonna be a Hollywood movie star life over here. Everything's gonna be perfect. And now I see it's not perfect. And that's very aggravating to a husband. So since to a stranger you couldn't get away if you got angry with them. To a Rosh Hashiva, to a rabbi that came to your house, you wouldn't get away with getting angry at them. To somebody else, a husband and a wife come to your house, and that wife is so annoying. She is whining away by the Shabbos table. She's so annoying. And you're just laughing to yourself. You're not going to say anything. She's not your wife. It would be out of place for you to say such a thing. But your wife, you believe that you are entitled to criticize and put in her place and tell her what you really think. But you're not. You have to learn how to control yourself that much more when it comes to the people in your own house. One of the Rabbi in the area was Rabbi Ephraim Eisenberg. He was the son-in-law of Mordechai Gifter. He was a very big person, big Talmid Chacham, a big tzaddik, and Midas, his character was exquisite. And he passed away tragically at a rather young age, maybe about 65 years old. He got a brain tumor, and it went very, very quickly, unfortunately, and he passed away. And at the Levaya, at the funeral, one of his children said over that my father was a master of sensing when the conversation was about to drift into Lashon Hara. And he was always one step ahead of the conversation. And the moment that he would see that the conversation was going south and it was going to end up in Lashon Hara, he automatically would change the subject to something else so we can never get there. So the same thing is true. If you're in a conversation or there's talk going on at the table and people begin saying Lashon Hara, you have to learn how to just, switch. You can sing a song, sing one of your favorite Sephardi nigunim. Exactly. That will certainly end all Lashon Hara. The question is that if someone's wife continues to do something that is not pleasing to the husband, and he just keeps saying, okay, I accept, but he's building up inside resentment, and eventually he's going to explode, right? Or you're going to have very negative feelings towards your wife. So you have one or two ways to deal with it. Either you can be in that realm of a person that you learn how to not let it bother you. But if it does bother you, then in the right time, when it's quiet, and as we mentioned last time, whenever you want to have a serious conversation with your wife, you should always pick the time of the month after she's gone to the mikvah, so that you can be cozy with each other, and you can be soft-spoken with each other, and you can sit on the couch, and you can hold her hand if you need to be able to have the conversation, and in a very polite and nice way, you tell her that this really is what's going to be best for us and for our marriage and making our Shalom Bayis so much better. And you should know that when you do whatever that thing might be, it's hard for me to deal with on a regular basis. And I was hoping maybe that we could work on it, that we could, find a way to make that a little bit better. But you're never criticizing, you're never putting her down, you're not rebuking her. You're just saying, our goal is Shalom Bayis. And this particular thing, I believe, is making it more difficult to cultivate that. So for us, for our sake, maybe if you could do like this, again, gentle, loving, caring. It's your fault. It's your problem that you're having a hard time, and you're asking your wife to help you get through this. In the world that we live in today, therapy and psychologists is a very normal thing. And if somebody's wife really has mental health issues, whatever you can do to encourage her to get the help that she needs is very important.
And how do you invite them to go get help together?
Again, it's the same way that we spoke about before. You're not criticizing her, you're not putting her down, you're explaining to her in a very loving way that you're concerned for her because of the way that she exhibits certain behavior and the way that she handles certain situations, whether it's her anxiety or it's her ADD or it's her anger, whatever it is, and you tell her, I'm happy to go with you, and we can go together, and you have to get it to, if you really feel that she has mental health issues, which is not such an uncommon thing in the world today, then you really have to encourage her lovingly and caringly to get the help that she needs. The question is that you're all young, Baruch Hashem, and you're all successful entrepreneurs on your way to becoming multimillionaires, Be'ez Hashem, and don't forget about Makar Chaim. And it often takes a lot of time and a lot of energy, and sometimes comes at the worst time during the day. And it could come at the expense of your wife and your children, of the amount of hours and energy that you have to put into your business to help it grow. So how do you balance those two worlds? The wife and your children, with your wife, family, the house, and your business. You have to sit down with your wife and you have to ask your wife, what do you need from me? When do you need me to be home? What are the key parts of the day that you need me? Is it morning? Is it picking up from school? Is it bedtime? She'll say, all of them, yeah? So what are the key parts of the day that I need to be here? And you tell her, I would, if things would work in a perfect world, I would be here all day long. I'll take care of the kids all day. I'll take them out of your hair all day long. I'll be there for you all day. Whatever you need, I'm going to be there. But reality is that it's very expensive to live in Los Angeles, and to pay rent or to pay a mortgage and to pay bills and gas bills and electric bills and so on and so forth. And school is $20,000, $25,000, $30,000 a year for the kids, and that's only kindergarten. Yeah, and so we have a lot of expenses, and we're trying to make it. And if I don't work a certain amount of hours a day, so then we're not going to be able to pay the bills. So I want to be there for you as much as I can, but I also need to be there for the business. So you tell me, what are the main times that I have to be here, so that will become, like for me, the Kodesh HaKadoshim will be the holiest of holies, and I will do whatever I need to do to make sure that dinner time and bedtime I'm home. Your business is not going to fall apart if you're missing an action for 2 hours at night. It's not. It might take a little bit longer. There might end up being a little bit of a glitch, whatever. But your business is not going to fall apart because you're busy at home taking care of your wife and your kids. So priorities are your wife and your children. The business is secondary. It's what pays the bills, but it's secondary compared to the simcha of the Shalom Bayis that you're going to have with your wife when she knows that you're there for her. Now, again, if you have a wife who she just, she wants you to become very wealthy, and she knows the only way that you can do it is if you're going to be working, 16 hours a day, and she's willing to forego and to sacrifice your FaceTime at home because you just can't be there because you're busy making money, so then that's her prerogative, that's her choice. But most women, it seems today, are not like that. They want you to be a millionaire, but they also want you to be home all the time, to be there with the kids. So you have to find a balance that works for your schedule and for your wife and the kids, that's going to work itself out. But it's the same rule in every situation. It's all from you. If your wife feels that she's the most beautiful woman in the world, and she feels that you are super, super in love with her and attracted to her, and you can still look at her with some googly eyes every once in a while after so many years of marriage, and you can say flirtatious things that are appropriate, that make her heart start skipping a beat. And then when you are together in the bedroom, in the world of intimacy, it's a separate sheer altogether, all of that. But you do things that let her know how desirable she is to you. So then she will loosen up and she will open up and she will be a different person. But if you can't give her that assurance that she is the only woman in the world that you are dreaming of and thinking of and you desire and you want to be with her and how much you love her, so then she's always a little bit closed. How you want to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu, how you want to dive into Hashem, how you want to learn, how you want to be careful in mitzvot, you want to have chumrah, you want to be strict in certain areas, that's between you and the Ribbono Shel Olam. If your wife is not holding in that particular place, and you try to overwhelm her with your great zealousness of religion, so then yeah, you're going to scare her, completely scare her. I remember once that my wife and I married for a few years, I think, maybe 2 or 3 years, and it was the month of Elul, and so I was learning the Sefer Shari Tshuva, the Gates of Repentance, from Musar, and it's a very, very serious Sefer, a very serious book, all about tshuva and feeling bad and working on yourself and having charata, regret, and there's 20 different steps that you have to do, and I was learning it every single day, and I was like on fire with tshuva. And I came home one night for dinner, and my wife and I having just a regular dinner, and I was darshaning, tshuva, and this, and Elul, and Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and we're going to burn, and Hashem's going to save us. And I was like totally into it. And my wife, who normally would listen to what I had to say, her head was turned the other direction. So I got very offended. I'm giving a drasha, you're not listening to me. So I said, no, you don't hear what I'm saying? She turns her head back to me, she has tears coming down her face. And she says, when you say Divrei Torah, I want to be inspired. I don't want to feel bad about myself. I said, oh, okay. I'll try harder next time. And I've been very careful since that time not to say things that are going to make my wife feel bad. They want to be inspired. They want to be uplifted. They want to feel good about Yiddishkeit. They want to feel good about what it means to be a Jew and why they should want to do more. Not because you're pounding them over the head with your zealotry and your strictness and your own inspiration. That's for you and Hashem. And with your wife, you just make her feel good and lift up her spirits and try to inspire in a positive, warm kind of a way. Okay, you should have a lot of hatzlacha.
Amen.
And learning how to appreciate your wives for who they are, not for who you want them to be. And if you appreciate them for who they are, as time goes on, they will become more of that person that you dream of, because you will begin to really appreciate the essence of who they are, and you'll find so many good things in your spouse that you never saw before. You'll have a whole new image of who she is. B'ezrat Hashem.